Wouldn't recommend going for a swim in the sea as your first date generally, but especially not in the middle of a storm in the middle of November. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. Hey everyone, welcome to the Salt YouTube channel. My name is Paddy. If you're new here, welcome. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different and doing a deep dive into some of my first date failures. Yes, that's right, today we're going to be exploring my varied and often entertaining history of some of the dates I've been on that have just been absolute and total disasters. Now I know what you're thinking, Paddy, you've been giving out such good advice recently, you seem to have it all together. How can you of all people possibly have had such horrendous first date experiences? Well, I'm here to tell you that it happens to the best of us, and I hope that some of these stories can amuse you and also make you feel not so alone in some of your less successful endeavours. So let's kick things off with date number 1, which I like to call the road to nowhere date. So to add a bit of context, I matched up with someone who is based in Southampton, which for me in Brighton and Hove is probably about a couple of hours away, worst case scenario. So I factored this journey into my timing. However, what I didn't factor in was the multiple sets of roadworks I encountered along the way, and also the fact that the address the sat-nav gave me for our meeting point gave me an address that was completely the opposite end of Southampton to where we were actually supposed to be meeting. All of this resulted in me getting lost in the middle of Southampton and arriving approximately 2 hours late to our date, also having to ask a stranger for directions and using their bathroom because I was so desperate at the time because I was running so late. This was obviously not the greatest start and wasn't helped by the fact that she had made plans with her friends after us meeting, so we only had about an hour together in total. Not to mention the fact that I'd cooked her something for lunch, and by the time that I actually arrived, the appetite was completely gone. Needless to say that that was not a successful date. Unfortunately, we didn't see each other again. I think whatever chemistry could have been established between the two of us there was probably killed off by the fact that I was so late and so stressed as a result of my lateness, and just wasn't myself. I couldn't bring myself to the table in that situation because I was just so worked up from the long and stressful journey that I just really wasn't in the moment at all. Okay, so for the second date failure of today, we're going to be talking about the time where I invited someone to a concert on my first date. Now, let this be a lesson to all of you, this is never a great idea. So I took a real risk here. For context, I matched up with someone and it turned out we had the same taste in music. Me and my dad had booked to go and see a concert and he could no longer make it, and so I thought that I would offer her the ticket that he would have been using anyway since it was all paid up front, there was no need to pay anything else. So we both met up at the gig and it was clear from the get-go, unfortunately there wasn't a huge amount of chemistry between us, something just didn't quite click. We then had to spend the next 3.5 to 4 hours together at this concert, devoid of conversation between and before the acts, and it was just a pretty painful experience. We essentially just both pretended that we didn't exist for the entire time, and then when it came time to leave, we skirted off in very different directions very quickly. Would not recommend anything along those lines for a first date going forwards. In hindsight, it wasn't a great idea. It relied a lot on the assumption that we were going to hit it off. Unfortunately, we didn't, and it was just painful as a result. That brings us on to date fail number 3, which I like to call sink or swim. So, for context, I met with this person on the app, we both discovered this shared love of sea swimming, and we decided it would be a laugh on our first date to go for a swim in the sea as the first way of introducing each other. Now, I assumed that this might have been entirely a joke until the day before when we were confirming what the plans were, and it turned out that she was actually absolutely 100% up for this sea swim in the middle of like November, December time, so it's pretty cold outside, so I thought, you know what, life's too short, let's live a little. Brought a wetsuit for the occasion because it was absolutely Baltic outside, absolutely freezing, and there was no way I was going in there without one. She certainly wasn't. So got to her house, went to go and pick her up. We went to the beach. By the time we got down to the beach, the conditions were looking pretty dodgy. So it was very, very stormy. Lots of rain as well, which made it even less pleasant because it was cold and wet before we'd even got in the sea. And we decided, you know what, despite the fact that there's no one else on the beach, we're just going to go for it. We're just going to go in and see what happens. Immediately when we went in the sea, a massive wave pretty much knocked us over instantaneously. She managed to injure her arm. I was pretty bedraggled and absolutely freezing and hadn't adjusted to the temperature at all. And we just abandoned the idea entirely pretty much as soon as it had started. Got changed back, went to a cafe and went for a walk instead. Now granted, the rest of the date was pretty pleasant, however that didn't set things off on a great tone, considering that she was in pain and injured for the rest of the date. Unfortunately as well, we didn't actually hit it off, and we decided that we were going to be friends after that and not see each other again. I do still wonder to this day how much the pain and the distraction had contributed towards that decision, but ultimately, yeah, wouldn't recommend going for a swim in the sea as your first date generally, but especially not in the middle of a storm in the middle of November. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. So that brings us on to date fail number 4. So this was my first ever date with a girl, and this was between the ages of, I guess, 17 or 18. Now, for those of you that didn't know me in school, which I'm guessing is most of this audience, I was pretty socially awkward in school, to say the least, and communication, particularly with the opposite sex, was not a strong point of mine at all. So I turned up to this date that I'd been set up on by my friend. Basically, he had a friend who he thought we'd be a really good fit together, and basically gave us a meeting point of this cafe in town. Met up with her. She was a really lovely person, but I said all the wrong things. Somehow my compliments sounded backhanded and like they were sort of insults in disguise, which in hindsight I can sort of see how that happened, and I just generally felt very awkward and that my communication skills were really lacking. Flirting was really just not a thing I did or knew how to do at all, and so it was a bit of a train wreck, to say the least. Thankfully we did meet up again a second time. She gave me another chance, despite the fact that I managed to really kind of bomb that one pretty badly, but unfortunately we didn't decide to proceed past the second date. And now I know that obviously everyone has to start somewhere, and if you don't actually try new things then you'll never learn how to do them well. I'm just sorry for whoever is on the receiving end of that experience that they had to be my practice round in this scenario. So thank you for teaching me valuable lessons there, but also I am so sorry that you had to be on the receiving end of that. If you enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out the other videos on this channel. Also give this video a thumbs up if you liked this and enjoyed it. It means a lot to have your support. And if you have any great, hilarious and embarrassing first date stories that you'd like to share with other people, please do add in the comments below. Or if you just want to laugh at my expense again, please do feel free to add any commentary to this. Until next time, I'll see you later.